Lagos never sleeps, and neither does the Adewale Empire. From the 40th floor of the sleek black glass tower situated in the most prime location of Victoria Island, Kosi Adewale used to stand there, capturing the entire city in his sight. At 34, Kosi was the uncrowned king of West Africa, holding a massive mineral extraction network and financial supply chain in his hands. He possessed the raw beauty of a warrior, a towering physique over 6 feet, broad, unyielding shoulders that filled bespoke Savile Row suits, and dark skin that gleamed with the pride of aristocratic blood. His deep eyes always exuded an absolute authority that made even the most veteran tycoons wary. But that was 3 days ago. Before the devastating fire at the suburban orphanage burned it all to ashes, in the middle of a charity gala sponsored by the Adewale Group itself, a transformer substation suddenly exploded. While the elite crowd trampled over each other to escape, leaving behind panicked screams, Kosi rushed back into the sea of fire to pull out a 6-year-old boy trapped under a burning purlin. The boy survived, but the price Kosi had to pay was too steep. The entire right half of the billionaire's face and shoulder suffered third-degree burns, leaving him permanently disfigured. Now, the VIP room at the most expensive private hospital in Lagos was overwhelmed with the smell of antiseptics and a deadly silence. Kosi lay on the bed, half of his face heavily wrapped in stark white bandages, seeping streaks of dark red medication. The physical pain gnawed at every inch of his flesh, like thousands of needles piercing through his marrow, but it was nothing compared to the freezing aura spreading across the room. The clicking of stiletto heels against the Italian ceramic tiles broke the silence. Zikora walked in. Zikora, the beloved daughter of one of Abuja's most powerful political families, the well-matched fiancée whom the media praised as the future queen of Adewale. She possessed a ruthlessly sharp beauty, flawless honey-bronze skin, haughty slanted eyes that were meticulously made up, and an hourglass figure draped in an expensive, vibrant red silk dress from a Parisian fashion house. But right now, those gorgeous eyes were narrowing. No tears, no sorrow, only a pure, spine-chilling disgust. Following Zikora were Chike and Nneka, 2 individuals draped in luxurious outfits who used to be close friends constantly surrounding Kosi at sparkling wine parties. All 3 stood exactly 3 meters away from the edge of the hospital bed, as if afraid the boundary of destitution and disease would infect their designer clothes. Covering her nose with her hand, grimacing. The stench of burnt flesh is still lingering around here. It makes me sick to my stomach. How do the doctors in this hospital operate if they can't even spray a little sanitizing perfume? Zikora's voice rang out, sharp and cold, piercing straight into Kosi's eardrums. He slowly opened his remaining left eye, the only eye not covered in bandages, quietly looking at the woman who was about to become his wife. Crossing her arms, her eyes sweeping over Kosi's blood-seeping bandages. How much do you think your world-saving hero complex is worth? Kosi, you hold an entire empire. Yet you threw away your face for some raggedy orphan with an unknown background. Do you plan to walk down the aisle next month looking like a monster like this? Chike, the best friend who once swore life-and-death loyalty, cleared his throat, adjusted his solid gold Rolex, and dropped a mocking remark. Smirking. He looks no different now from those gargoyle statues in a dark art museum. Mr. Kosi, the board of directors held an emergency meeting this morning. The stocks are evaporating. They cannot let a guy with a disfigured face represent the flawless image of the Adewale Group. Nneka smoothed her stylishly curled hair and pouted, chiming in, shaking her head vigorously. It's horrible, Zikora. You can't walk down the street or appear on the cover of Vogue with a cripple like this. The entire Lagos elite will laugh in our faces. Kosi lay motionless. His heart, which he thought had hardened on the battlefield of business, was now being suffocated by a cruel and naked truth. The glittering masks of the elites had fallen, revealing rotten, hollow personalities. They did not respect him. They only worshipped the power, the beauty, and the bank checks he brought them. With a thick, hoarse voice, slightly hissing through his teeth, "Get out." Zikora took half a step forward, sliding off the dazzling 10-carat diamond ring from her ring finger. The light from the diamond flashed coldly, in stark contrast to her frozen heart, throwing the ring hard onto the mattress, gritting her teeth. No need to chase me out. A crippled man with a disgusting face has no right to stand in the same ranks as me. My family will annul the engagement. Keep this ring to buy some cheap painkillers, because you are about to lose that chairman's seat, Kosi. You are now just a stain on the elite class. Zikora turned on her heel, the clicking of her shoes striking the floor crisply and decisively. Chike and Neka also hastily turned away, not a single one looking back. The VIP room door slammed shut, leaving Kosi sinking into the loneliest darkness a human could ever taste. The room fell silent once again. Kosi raised his uninjured left arm, touching the diamond ring lying abandoned on the white mattress. He did not cry. Tears were too much of a luxury for a betrayed emperor. The burning fire deep in his eye right now was not despair, but the flame of awakening. The room door opened again, this time more gently and cautiously. Eze, the loyal old butler of the Adewale family, stepped in. He was in his 60s, his salt and pepper hair cut neatly, his butler uniform ironed flawlessly, without a single crease. His dark, weathered skin held the wrinkles of time and devotion. Unlike the crowd outside, Eze's eyes were filled with extreme sorrow when he saw his master. Bowing deeply, his voice trembling, "Master Kosi, they are all gone. Sir, I heard everything. They truly have no hearts." Kosi leaned on his hand, biting down on the flesh-tearing pain from his shoulder to slowly sit up. The white bandages seeped another patch of fresh blood. He mercilessly swept the diamond ring off onto the floor, with a deep, raspy voice, carrying an overwhelming authority. "Uncle Ease, lock down all information regarding my medical condition. Release a statement to the board of directors that Chairman Kosi needs an indefinite treatment period abroad and will not be seeing anyone. Withdraw all cash from my secret backup account." Eze looked up, his eyes full of bewilderment. Panicking, "Sir, you are severely injured. The chief doctor said you need to stay in the intensive care unit for at least another month to prevent infection. Where are you planning to go?" Kosi swung his arm, violently ripping out the IV needle on the back of his left hand. Drops of solution splattered onto the floor, eyes sharp as a razor. "I cannot stay in this fake incubator for another second. That fire burned half of my face to ashes, but it also burned away the fog that has blinded my eyes all this time. I will leave. I will live with this ugly form itself, to see just how thoroughly rotten this magnificent Lagos society truly is." Eze hastily stepped forward, intending to stop him, but the imposing aura radiating from Kosi forced him to halt. The old butler gently bit his lip, a teardrop welling up at the corner of his deeply wrinkled eyes. He knew Kosi's temperament well. Once the lion had decided to leave the den, no chains could hold it back. Bowing his head very deeply, his voice choked with emotion. "Your orders, sir. Wherever you are, in whatever form, you are forever my only master. Please, take care of yourself." That night, the Lagos sky unleashed a torrential thunderstorm. Bolts of lightning slashed across the pitch-black sky, illuminating the cruel divide of this city. On one side was Victoria Island, blazing with high-voltage lights, where men in suits drinking champagne were gleefully calculating how to carve up the seat of power. On the other side was the mainland, where muddy, foul-smelling slums lay gasping under the freezing rain. From the back door of the private hospital, a tall, staggering figure walked out. Kosi covered his head completely with an old, frayed fleece jacket that Aze had prepared. The half of his face, still wrapped in white bandages, now began soaking up the rainwater. His expensive leather shoes had been left behind, replaced by a cheap pair of canvas shoes, stepping on puddles of murky black mud. He walked with great difficulty, each footstep heavy as the burning pain in his shoulder grew bone-chillingly worse by the minute. But Kosi did not stop. He walked against the flow of the crowd, heading towards the deepest slums of Lagos. The ugly beggar carrying a billion-dollar throne within him had begun his self-imposed exile to search for something even rarer than diamonds in the human world, a sincere heart. The thunderstorms in Lagos brought no cleansing. They only deepened the wretchedness of the mainland. The rainwater swept up garbage, mud, and the distinct stench of stagnant sewers, splashing directly onto Kosi's battered body. The frayed old fleece jacket clung to his skin, rubbing against the bleeding third-degree burns, making every step of West Africa's most powerful billionaire no different from stepping on hot coals. His entire body shivered as an infection-induced fever began to flare up. When his last ounce of strength was depleted, Kosi collapsed into a puddle of black mud right in front of the peeling stone steps of the mainland public hospital, the most dilapidated place where those at the bottom of Lagos society came to wait for death. The hospital's glass doors swung open. Obi, the hospital manager, stepped out. He was short and fat, wearing a cheap suit that he tried to iron slickly to look like a superior. His skin was oily, his beady eyes darting around full of calculation and greed. Upon seeing the filthy bandage-wrapped figure lying gasping for air and blocking the pathway, Obi's face immediately contorted in disgust. Kicking the toe of his shiny leather shoe right next to Kosi's face, his voice shrill. "Drag this dead rat and throw it in the dump out back, right now. Don't let its stench foul up the noses of the health inspectors coming this morning." The security guard following Obi hesitated, his eyes sweeping over Kosi's dark red blood-seeping bandages, bowing his head, stammering. "Manager Obi, sir, this man is severely burned. The wounds are oozing blood and pus. If we throw him in the dump in this cold rain, he will die." Slapping the back of the guard's neck hard, glaring. "A beggar with no money to pay hospital fees is not a human being in this hospital. If you want to play hero, dig into your own pockets to pay, or I'll fire you along with him. Toss him." The guard gritted his teeth, bending down to hoist Kosi up by the armpits. The flesh-tearing pain forced a choked groan out of Kosi's throat. His only unbandaged left eye sluggishly opened, staring at the gray sky. Could it be that the emperor of the Adewale group would end his life in a stinking garbage dump? Right at that moment, a wooden mop clattered onto the tiled floor. Amara rushed out from the hallway, splashing mud and water, swinging both arms to forcefully shove the guard away from Kosi. Despite the freezing rain instantly soaking her faded light blue janitor uniform, she dropped to her knees in the mud, using her frail back to shield the massive, shivering figure. Amara possessed the resilient beauty of the arid red lands. Mahogany skin dotted with sweat, large round brown eyes overflowing with indignation and pity, and hair neatly wrapped under a frayed yellow head tie. Holding her head high, her voice firm. "Manager Obi, sir, please stop. This man is dying. His wounds are turning necrotic from the rain. Please let me take him to the first aid room for just a moment." Obi snatched the umbrella from the guard's hand, his eyes blazing as he looked at the lowly janitor who dared to defy his orders in broad daylight, gritting his teeth, pointing a finger wearing a fake gold ring straight at Amara's face. "Are you teaching me how to run a hospital, you little trash-sweeping brat? Get your ass inside and scrub 10 toilets right now, or I'll dock your entire pathetic month's salary and fire you this minute." Amara's hands gripped Kosi's freezing fleece jacket tightly. She knew the consequences well. Her monthly salary was the only thing keeping the orphans she sheltered in the slums from starving to death. But looking down at his shallow breathing and that single eye turned toward her, her fiery heart allowed no compromise. Looking straight into the manager's eyes. "Sir, you have the right to dock my pay, but a human life cannot be thrown away like a pile of rags in this rain. If the hospital won't take him, I will care for him myself." Screeching with laughter. "Very well. Take that ugly piece of trash back to your hole and cuddle it. Don't you dare take half a step bringing it into my patient wards." With that, Obi turned on his heel and marched straight inside, leaving Amara kneeling in the storm. With extraordinary strength wrung from deep compassion, the skinny girl wrapped her arm around Kosi's shoulder, gritting her teeth to hoist up his towering frame of over 6 feet. Step by step, she dragged him around to the back of the hospital, entering an old storage room filled with moldy cardboard boxes and a strong stench of bleach. She laid Kosi down on a pile of thin, tattered blankets. Under the sickly yellow light of a buzzing incandescent bulb, Amara opened the cloth wallet lining her apron. Inside were just a few crumpled Naira notes, all her food money for the week. Without a second of hesitation, she clutched the wad of cash and dashed out into the rain, running to a rundown private pharmacy at the end of the street. 15 minutes later, Amara returned with a few blister packs of the cheapest antibiotics, a bottle of saline solution, bandages, and iodine. She fetched a basin of warm water and knelt beside Kosi. Kosi vaguely woke up due to the pain. He kept his eyes half closed, on guard. All his life, the women who approached him brought expensive perfumes, flirtatious smiles, and ravenous eyes staring at the massive wealth he possessed. When this face was disfigured, even the woman he was about to marry threw back his ring with a nauseated look. He waited for this janitor girl to peel off the bandages and scream in terror. But no, Amara's hands, rough from cleaning chemicals, were unbelievably gentle. She diligently used scissors to cut away the layers of bandages caked in mud, blood, and pus. When the right half of Kosi's face, with its blistered, shriveled, raw red flesh, was exposed under the light, Amara did not flinch back. Her brown eyes remained still, harboring a deep, pure compassion, whispering, her hand gently dabbing a saline-soaked cotton ball onto the bleeding wound. "Bear with it a little. The rain has infected the wound. I need to clean it thoroughly. Those people out there wear nice clothes, but their hearts are rotten. The fact that you're still alive shows you have a very strong will to live. Don't give up." She carefully crushed the antibiotic pill, mixed it with a little clean water, and patiently used a plastic spoon to feed every drop into Kosi's swollen mouth. The bitter liquid medicine slid down his throat, yet it brought a strange warmth that spread across the billionaire's once frozen chest. Kosi silently observed her. He neither groaned nor complained. The sharp eye that he used to read through the minds of old foxes in the business world was now fully taking in the figure of the poor janitor girl. In the middle of that foul, damp storage room, Kosi Adewale had finally found the most brilliant diamond that his entire empire had never possessed. A silent vow, sharp as a blade, was just carved deep into the mind of the beggar with a monster's face. "You saved me from the mud. I will use this entire life to put you on a throne." The suffocating atmosphere of the mainland hospital was never forgiving to the weak. The next morning, just as Amara carefully wrung out a damp towel to clean Kosi's wounds again, the storage room door was kicked open with brutal force. Obi barged in, his fat, sweaty face contorted with rage. He had just discovered that Amara was secretly hiding Kosi in this damp room, pointing his chubby finger straight at Amara's face, the veins on his neck bulging. "You dare turn hospital property into a slum for a mangy dog? Are you tired of breathing, you lowly brat?" Bowing her head, but her eyes maintaining their resolve, shielding the makeshift bed. "Manager Obi, sir, I am not using any hospital property. This corner of the storage room has been abandoned for years, and all the medicine and bandages I paid for out of my own pocket. Please have mercy, and let him stay a few more days until his wounds close," sneering, slapping the stack of inventory files hard against her shoulder. "Own pocket? Good. From this moment on, your entire salary for this month is deducted. Plus, you will scrub all the restrooms on the 3rd floor. If you don't finish before sunset, I'll throw both you and this stinking cripple into the dumpster." He turned on his heel and walked away, the door slamming shut with an ear-piercing bang. Amara stood silently in the dark, her shoulder aching. Her entire salary was gone. Tomorrow's meal was now a big round zero. But when she turned around and caught Kosi's silent gaze from beneath the stark white bandages, Amara only smiled faintly, carefully tucking the thin blanket back over him. She didn't know that behind the single eye staring at her, the billionaire of the Adewale Empire was grinding his teeth. Kosi's heart swelled with ultimate fury at the manager's cruelty, mixed with a fierce pity and respect for the skinny girl willing to take a beating for him. Early that afternoon, The dilapidation of the mainland hospital was suddenly disrupted by flashing camera lights and the rapid clicking of heels. Zikora appeared. The beloved daughter of the powerful family stepped out of an armored Mercedes-Benz, draped in a pure white silk dress from Chanel. Today, she played the role of a charity angel descending upon the mainland, followed by a horde of reporters and a massive PR team. Every smile, every touch handing out cheap gift bags was calculated for the perfect camera angle to polish her name in tomorrow's papers. As the entourage moved through the back hallway to get the most authentic background, they ran into Amara. At this moment, Amara had just used the last few coins scraped from the bottom of her pockets to buy an aluminum tray holding a bit of cold rice and bean stew, carefully feeding Kosi, whom she had helped sit up leaning against the wall to get some fresh air in the hallway. The smell of iodine and the musty scent from Kosi's bandages hit Zikora's sensitive nose directly, covering her nose tightly with a Dior perfume-scented handkerchief, stepping back in absolute disgust. "Turn off the cameras immediately. What kind of garbage cesspool did you lead me into? Does this place house deformed monsters spreading diseases?" The tall bodyguard next to Zikora immediately stepped up, swinging the heel of his shoe to kick the aluminum tray out of Amara's hand. "Move aside and let the lady pass. Don't you beggars have eyes?" The aluminum tray fell with a clatter, the cold rice scattering all over the filthy dirt floor. The bean stew spilled everywhere. That was their last asset, the only thing that could help Kosi fight off the infection fever today. The corners of Amara's eyes burned red, defying the gap in social status. Defying the camera lenses and the aggressive bodyguards, she stood up abruptly, blocking the path between Kosi and Zikora. The skinny figure of the janitor now radiated a strange, imposing dignity. Looking straight at Zikora, her voice firm but still maintaining proper boundaries. "Madam, you wear a spotless white dress to do charity, but your actions heartlessly trample on the last bite of food of a dying man. You can despise us for being dirty. You have the right to take another path, but you have no right to trample on a human being's dignity and life. Did you come here to save people, or just to buy fake photos?" The entire hallway held its breath. The reporters stared wide-eyed at the poor janitor daring to directly question the daughter of a powerful political family. Zikora was shaking with rage, the saintly mask on her beautiful face completely shattered. Gritting her teeth, her stiletto heel intentionally crushing the scattered rice grains on the floor. "My compassion is for people who are useful to society, not this ugly, dying scum. A lowly janitor like you, reeking of cheap poverty, what right do you have to lecture me? Where is the manager of this hospital? Tomorrow, you will never have the chance to step foot in here again." Amara did not step back. She quietly knelt, carefully using her hands to pick up the dented pieces of the aluminum box, turning her back to that fake nobility to protect Kosi. In the corner, Kosi witnessed the entire spectacle. The Emperor's single eye glared at the heel crushing Zikora's rice grains, the woman he had intended to marry just a few weeks ago. Right now, she was no different from the most vile demon. Kosi then looked at Amara, her frail shoulders trembling in sorrow over his ruined meal. Never before had the boundary between evil wrapped in velvet and kindness hidden in rags appeared so brutally clear. The fire of fury blazed in Kosi's veins, forging a ruthless vow. He would strip away all of Zikora's glory so she could taste the flavor of dirt-covered rice, and he would lift Amara's heel to the highest throne of this continent. Night fell over the mainland, bringing a stifling heat and the raw smell of mud rising after the rain. Lagos's cruelty did not merely lie in Zikora's insults from that morning, but also manifested in the hunger clawing at Amara's stomach. All afternoon, under Manager Obi's venomous supervision, Amara had to scrub clean 10 of the hospital's restrooms with her bare hands and a cheap, overpowering chlorine chemical. Her back ached as if it were breaking. Her fingertips were wrinkled and bleeding from the corrosive chemicals. Her entire salary had been stripped away by the manager. She didn't have a single naira left to buy herself a crust of dry bread. When darkness completely engulfed the hospital, Amara was finally let go. She dragged her heavy footsteps back to the dilapidated storage room, As soon as she pushed open the rotting wooden door, a blast of stifling hot air hit her face. On the pile of torn blankets, Kosi was shivering violently. His breathing was ragged, heavy, and wheezing like a blacksmith's bellows. The bandages on half of his face were seeping a cloudy yellow fluid. The cheap antibiotics Amara had bought yesterday were completely ineffective against the spreading necrosis. The emperor of the Adewale Empire was sinking into a delirious fever, his muscular body curled up in excruciating pain. Amara rushed over, pressing her freezing hand against Kosi's forehead. His forehead was as hot as a burning coal. Without a high dose of antibiotics injected directly into his veins tonight, the infection would enter his bloodstream. He would die before sunrise. Amara stood up abruptly. She reached deep inside her undergarments, trembling as she unclasped a tarnished silver necklace. In the center of the necklace was an intricately carved daisy pendant. This was the only keepsake, the final asset her late mother had left her before passing away. Her mother's parting words echoed in her ears. "Keep this, my daughter. Sell it when you need to save your own life." She wasn't saving her own life at all. She was about to sell it to save an ugly beggar, a stranger whom the whole society had just trampled upon this morning. She gripped the pendant so tightly that the sharp edges of the daisy cut into her bleeding palm, and then she dashed out into the night. 20 minutes later, at a grimy pawnshop, deep in the heart of the slum, Amara faced the pawnshop owner with his deceitful eyes, slamming the silver necklace onto the counter, his voice shrill. 2,000 naira! Why would I buy this scrap silver to clutter my display case? If you won't sell, get out. Gripping the edge of the counter with both hands, her voice desperate but without losing her dignity. "Mr. Njoku, sir, please look closely. This pendant is pure solid silver, hand-carved. Its value must be at least 10,000 naira. I need the money to buy medicine to save a dying man. Please have mercy. Just give me 5,000 naira." Smirking, tossing his head up. "I run a pawn shop, not a charity house. Where does a poor beggar get the right to bargain? If a dying man is going to die, just let him die. What's the point of him living to take up space? 3,000 naira, final offer." The corners of Amara's eyes were bloodshot, but she didn't let a single tear fall. She nodded emphatically, grabbed the 3 crumpled bills, and ran straight to the only private pharmacy still open. She bought 2 doses of the strongest antibiotics, a roll of clean bandages, and used the last few coins to buy a bowl of hot bean soup from a street vendor. When Amara returned to the storage room, the clock had struck 2 in the morning. She carefully prepared the medicine, using a clean syringe to slowly pump the antibiotics through a vein on the back of Kosi's left hand. Then, she scooped up spoonfuls of hot bean soup, patiently blowing on them to cool them down before feeding them into his swollen, cracked lips. The warm soup and the effects of the antibiotics gradually pulled Kosi out of his delirium. His left eye slowly opened. Under the sickly yellow light, he saw Amara's haggard face, her lips dry from starvation, and her bleeding fingertips carefully feeding him spoonful by spoonful. Kosi gently swatted Amara's hand away. The spoon halted, his voice hoarse, choked with resentment. "You're wasting everything. The people out there were right. I'm just a monster, a useless cripple waiting to die. Why must you sell your mother's keepsake for an unknown piece of trash? Just let me rot here." Amara quietly set the bowl of soup on the dirt floor. She wasn't angry at his defiant attitude. With an eerie calmness, she dipped the towel into the basin of warm water, gently wiping away the blood and pus seeping around Kosi's bandages, her voice deep and warm, but sharp as a blade. "Your life is not priced by their insults. They wear silk and drive armored cars, but their hearts rotted away a long time ago. You may lose your face, lose your money, but if you call yourself a cripple, you're the one letting them win." Kosi froze. His gaze pierced deep into the resilient brown eyes of the little janitor, looking straight into Kosi's only eye. "You ask me why? Because I believe in the karma of this land. My mother once taught me, a man's value doesn't lie in how high he stands in the light, but in how he retains his dignity when pushed to the absolute depths of darkness. You saved a life in a sea of fire. This scar is your medal, not a disgrace. I saved you, because this world cannot belong only to the cruel." Kosi's heart, the heart of the billionaire who had coldly trampled over countless rivals on the battlefield of business, was now violently shaken. In his 34 years of life, the people surrounding him only knew how to flatter him because of his massive wealth. Not once, not a single person dared to look directly at these gruesome wounds and say they were a medal. Not a single person was willing to sell their last keepsake to buy him a breath of air. This poor, starving janitor girl had just splashed a bucket of cold water on the arrogance of the Lagos elites, while simultaneously lighting a brilliant torch in Kosi's deadened soul. He remained silent and did not argue back anymore. He obediently opened his mouth, swallowing whole the spoonfuls of bean soup brimming with humanity that Amara fed him. The soup was salty. Kosi knew it wasn't the taste of salt, but the taste of the sweat and tears she had shed for him. After eating, the antibiotics started to kick in, and sleepiness washed over him. Before drifting off to sleep, Kosi's eye never left Amara. He saw her clutching her empty stomach, which was rumbling with hunger, curling up on the freezing tile floor in the corner of the room, surrendering the only thin blanket to him. In the quiet darkness of the slum, Kosi gritted his teeth until his gums bled. His uninjured hand clenched into a fist. An unspoken vow, bearing the weight of a billion-dollar empire, was etched straight into his soul. "Amara, you sold your mother's keepsake to buy me breath. They trampled on your meal, stripped you of your salary, trampled on your pride. I swear to the gods of this continent, when the fire on this face heals, I will make this entire city of Lagos kneel at your feet. Whoever caused you to shed a single tear, I will strip them of all their assets and take their life." 3 days since the night Amara sold her mother's keepsake, the strong doses of antibiotics had pulled Kosi back from death's door. The fever gradually subsided, and the wounds on half of his face began to form new skin, itching and aching to the core. He pretended to keep his eyes closed, lying still on the torn blankets, to continue observing the world from the bottom of the abyss. Every morning, Amara continued to skip meals, secretly saving every cup of clean water to sponge bathe him before starting her exhausting shift, scrubbing toilets. She grew dangerously thin, her eyes sunken, but her gaze remained crystal clear with resilience. That afternoon, the Lagos sky abruptly turned a leaden gray. Pitch-black clouds rolled in from the Atlantic Ocean toward the mainland, signaling a ferocious tropical storm. The wind rattled the flimsy corrugated iron sheets of the mainland. Just as thunder and lightning began tearing through the sky, 3 shiny black armored SUVs squeezed through the muddy alleys, braking sharply right in front of the public hospital's gates. Zikora stepped out. Today, she no longer played the charity angel. Draped in an expensive waterproof Burberry trench coat and wearing high-collared leather boots, Zikora revealed her true form as a ruthless female tycoon surveying her territory. Her family's conglomerate had secretly manipulated local officials, deciding to bulldoze this dilapidated public hospital to claim the prime real estate for a luxury shopping mall. Manager Obi trotted closely behind her, ignoring the heavy rain that was starting to soak his tight shirt over his fat belly. He constantly hunched over, rubbing his hands together obsequiously, waving his arm around the plot of land, his voice shrill and full of flattery. "Madam Zikora, the entire main building has been evacuated. The poor patients have been transferred to remote clinics. Tomorrow, the excavators can roll in and demolish it immediately to meet your project's schedule." Glaring around disdainfully, frowning when she saw the row of dilapidated storage rooms in the back. "What about that storage area? I don't want the press writing tomorrow that my corporation buried a few dead beggars under the rubble. Have your people clear it out right now," Obi jolted. He suddenly remembered the mess in the storage room at the end of the hallway. Emboldened by the backing of the elite daughter and the 5 massive bodyguards accompanying Zikora, Obi aggressively led the group straight toward the storage room. At this moment, inside the damp room, Amara had just wrung out a wet towel, preparing to wipe Kosi's face. The creaky wooden door was suddenly kicked open with brutal force, shattering its hinges. Wind and rain blasted straight into the room, carrying the roaring sound of thunder. Obi charged in, snatched the towel from Amara's hand, and threw it straight into a puddle of muddy water, roaring, pointing straight at Amara's face. "You're still hiding this stinking piece of trash in here? Do you treat my orders like garbage? You guys, drag this monster out into the street for me." Two of Zikora's black-suited bodyguards immediately lunged forward. They roughly grabbed Kosi by his bandaged shoulders and hoisted his massive body up. Kosi gritted his teeth so hard that green veins bulged on his temples, trying to restrain himself from fighting back. He wanted to see just how vicious this high society play would get. Amara panicked and rushed in, using her frail hands to try and pry the bodyguard's vice-like fingers off Kosi's wounds, blocking the bodyguards, her voice desperate but firm. "Manager, sir, madam, please have mercy. His fever just broke. His wounds are still bleeding. If you throw him out into this storm, he'll die. Just give us this one night. Tomorrow morning, I'll take him away myself." Zikora stepped into the room, the toe of her leather boot stepping on the torn, thin blankets. Recognizing the stubborn janitor who had humiliated her a few days ago, the corner of her mouth twisted into a sinister, venomous smile, crossing her arms, her eyes as cold as ice. "So it's you, the little rat who loves to preach morality. One night, this land is now my property. I will not allow any garbage to pollute the air I breathe for even a single second. Drag him out." Despite Amara's desperate attempts to stop them, the bodyguards easily shoved her to the dirt floor. They dragged Kosi out of the storage room, throwing him hard onto the muddy courtyard amidst the blinding white rain. The freezing rain lashed against Kosi's flesh, mud mixed with the dark red iodine streaks on his bandages. Amara scrambled to her feet, ignoring her scraped knees, and rushed after Kosi. Suddenly, her eyes caught sight of the box of antibiotics and the roll of clean bandages, the things she had to sell her late mother's keepsake to get lying abandoned near Zikora's shoes. Amara dropped to her knees in the mud, reaching out to pick up the medicine box, but the heel of Zikora's boot slammed down a beat faster. Crack! The box of antibiotics was crushed flat. The expensive pills crumbled to dust, mangled and mixed into the filthy mud. Amara's eyes widened, turning bloodshot with red veins. The corners of her lips trembled violently. That wasn't just medicine. It was his life, her mother's last keepsake, the very dignity she had wrung dry just to survive. Jerking her head up, her eyes sharp as a sword glaring straight at Zikora, roaring over the sound of thunder. "You can take this land. You have the right to strip me of my job, but you have no right to trample on a human being's hope for life. Your wealth is nothing but a rotten shell covering a hollow soul." Zikora was livid. The naked condemnation from a bottom feeder struck the exact venom of her arrogance, gritting her teeth and glaring, pointing at Amara. "Smash her mouth in for me. Beat her until she begs me for mercy." Obi immediately snatched the rubber baton from the hospital guard's hand, eagerly stepping forward to earn points with his new boss. He swung his arm up high, aiming straight down at Amara's head, but Amara did not back down. With incredible speed, she lunged forward, using her entire frail body to embrace Kosi tightly, putting her bare back squarely between the baton's blow and his wounded body. She squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the flesh-tearing pain to strike. Beneath her, Kosi lay in the mud, his single eye wide open in fury. The rain poured heavily over the billionaire's mud-splattered face. Kosi's heart felt as if it were being crushed by a giant hand. This girl, a stranger sharing no blood ties, had sold her keepsake to save him, starved herself to give him food, and now was willing to use her own life to take a beating for him. An absolute storm of fury and murderous intent exploded in the chest of the West African emperor. Enough was enough. Kosi tensed the muscles in his uninjured arm, preparing to unleash his true strength to snap the manager's neck the second the baton touched Amara, but the baton never landed. A terrifying screech of brakes ripped through the thunderstorm, drowning out even the thunder. Blinding LED headlights from a fleet of pitch-black armored SUVs suddenly swept across the muddy courtyard, shining directly into Zikora and Obi's faces, blinding them and forcing them to stumble backward. The last straw had fallen. and the time for judgment had arrived. The terrifying screech of tires tearing against the road ripped through the thunderstorm, drowning out the roaring thunder in the Lagos sky. Before Manager Obi could bring the rubber baton down on Amara's frail back, blinding LED headlights from 5 pitch-black armored Mercedes-Benz G-Wagons simultaneously swept across the muddy courtyard. The high-intensity light sliced through the night, shining directly onto Obi's face contorted with violence and Zikora's malicious smile, blinding them and making them stumble backward in panic. The doors of the SUVs swung open almost simultaneously. 15 elite bodyguards, clad in black waterproof tactical suits, charged into the courtyard. They did not shout, nor did they give any warnings. With the cold and decisive takedown maneuvers of military-trained operatives, they lunged straight at Zikora's guards, swinging a fist to knock Zikora's biggest bodyguard down into the mud. Secure everyone. No one is allowed to leave this area. In less than 10 seconds, the situation completely reversed. The aggressive bodyguards who had just dragged Kosi were now pinned face down in the muddy garbage. The baton flew out of Obi's hand. He slumped to the ground, his entire body trembling violently, like a waterlogged toad. Zikora took a few steps back, her expensive designer trench coat now splattered with filthy mud. She smoothed back her soaking wet hair, trying to regain the authoritative aura of the daughter of a political family that manipulated Lagos. She glared at the black-clad bodyguards locking down the area, gritting her teeth, the veins on her neck bulging. Who are you to dare interfere with our corporation's demolition? Do you know who I am? Call your master out here. I'll have you all rotting in jail tonight. From the Maybach S680 parked in the center of the formation, the rear door slowly opened. A large black umbrella popped open. Eze, the powerful butler of the Adewale family, stepped out. Today, he wasn't wearing his usual butler uniform, but was dressed in a charcoal 3-piece suit, bespoke tailored in London, exuding an imposing demeanor that could crush any corporate director. His leather Oxford shoes firmly stepped onto the mud, walking straight toward the dilapidated storage room. Zikora recognized Eze, her arrogant face instantly transformed, a sycophantic smile hastily blooming on her lips. She knew very well that Eze was the right-hand man of Kosi Adewale, the billionaire fiancé she was still certain was undergoing treatment abroad. Taking a step forward, her tone switching to sweet and fake. Uncle Eze, thank goodness did the Adewale group send you here to survey the project with me. Look, there is a crazy janitor and a diseased beggar here intentionally resisting. Eze did not bother to give Zikora even half a glance. He glided past her like stepping over an invisible obstacle, heading straight for the 2 people huddled together in the freezing mud. As soon as he arrived in front of Amara and Kosi, the powerful butler closed his umbrella, tossing it aside. Despite his expensive suit and old age, Ez slowly lowered his knees. Kneeling flat on the muddy ground, the rain soaking his salt and pepper hair, he bowed his head deeply, both hands touching the mud, his voice choking up, vibrating with extreme sorrow. Master Kosi, your servant has arrived late. Please punish me. Eze's form of address dropped onto the courtyard like a ticking time bomb. Time seemed to stop. The thunder and lightning overhead couldn't drown out the horrifying shockwaves slamming straight into the eardrums of everyone present. Master Kosi? Zikora's mouth fell open, her haughty slanted eyes, now bulging to the point of showing bloodshot veins. She stared blankly at the massive figure wrapped in blood-seeping bandages lying beneath Amara's frail back. Amara was also stunned. She loosened her embrace, looking in bewilderment at the lavishly dressed old man kneeling before the ugly beggar she had sold her mother's keepsake to save. Beneath Amara, Kosi stirred slightly. His large, firm hand reached up, gently but resolutely helping Amara to her feet, pulling her back behind him to shield her from the gusting winds. The billionaire of the Adewale Empire slowly stood up straight. Despite the torn, frayed old fleece jacket covered in mud and bloody pus, his towering mountainous stature rose tall in the midst of the storm, emitting a murderous intent and a suffocating pressure that made even the most elite bodyguards bow their heads. Raising a hand to the heavily bandaged half of his face, Kosi grabbed the edge of the soaked gauze. With one decisive tearing motion, he ripped off the bandages that had concealed his identity for weeks. The gauze dropped into the mud, revealing the emperor's face. Thanks to his superior constitution and the strongest doses of antibiotics that Amara had squeezed out blood and tears to buy for him, the third-degree burns had grown new skin. Although leaving behind rugged scars stretching from his cheekbone down to his shoulder blade, they did not make him into a monster as they had insulted him. On the contrary, those scars blended with his proud dark skin and deep, razor-sharp eyes, creating the beauty of a god of war just stepping out of the realm of death. Kosi's single eye locked onto Zecora. His gaze was so cold it could freeze blood veins, his voice deep and raspy, carrying the overwhelming power of someone who holds life and death in his hands. Lady Zecora, you have found the garbage polluting the air you breathe. Zecora's throat let out a choked, sickening gasp. Her legs turned to jelly, her designer leather boots staggering and slipping on the mud, sending her dropping to her knees on the ground. Her meticulously manicured hands scraped against the mud. She bit her lip until it bled. Yet, she still couldn't stop her entire body from trembling uncontrollably. The beggar whose medicine box she had just crushed, the one she had ordered to be smashed in the mouth, was Kosi Adewale. He was the billion-dollar throne, the ultimate power that she and her family had schemed their entire lives to cling to. 3 steps away, Manager Obi had pissed his pants. The warm liquid mixed with the freezing rainwater streamed down the legs of his cheap suit trousers. He repeatedly slammed his head into the black mud, throwing away all dignity, the thudding sounds of his forehead hitting the ground blending with the rain. Wailing, kowtowing incessantly. Master Kosi, boss, please spare my life. I had eyes but was blind. I was only following this lady's orders. Please be lenient. I didn't know you were an emperor in disguise. Please spare my life. Kosi didn't answer him. He slowly turned around, looking down at the girl who was soaking wet, shivering from the cold, yet still standing tall directly behind him. Amara looked at him, her large round brown eyes filled with astonishment. She just realized that the silent man who patiently drank every spoonful of her bean soup, the man she used her own life to shield from blows, could actually buy the entire lives of those kneeling at his feet with just the blink of an eye. Lowering his head, his voice retracting all brutality, leaving only the most sincere warmth. Amara, you were right. Their wealth is merely a shell covering a hollow personality. The antibiotics you bought me were crushed, but I promise you, they will have to pay for it with everything they have in this life. Kosi turned back around, facing those trembling at his feet, waiting for the lightning of punishment to strike. The thunderstorm still poured down heavily, but the air in the muddy courtyard of the mainland hospital seemed to be completely frozen. The headlights from the armored fleet shined straight onto the faces, turning pale with terror. The living legend of West African tycoons, Kosi Adewale, stood towering amidst the rain. On half of his face, the red rugged scars were still prominent, but the regal aura radiating from him was enough to crush anyone who dared to look up. Obi crawled over the pitch-black mud, unbothered by his cheap, torn suit. He slithered forward, intending to embrace the toe of Kosi's dirt-stained canvas shoe, tears and snot streaming down his face, kowtowing continuously into the puddle. Master Kosi, great boss, I am a blind dog, a lowly scum with no eyes. Please have mercy and spare my life. This plot of land, I will personally tear up the demolition order immediately. I will build you the largest VIP room. Kosi stepped back half a pace, his razor-sharp gaze sweeping over the trembling blob of fat at his feet as if looking at a rotting insect. He didn't even bother to bend down, his voice deep, emotionless. Uncle Eze, stepping forward nimbly despite the rain, bowing deeply. Yes, sir, your servant is listening to your orders, pointing his finger straight down at the ground. Buy out this entire plot of land, along with the mainland public hospital system, tonight. After that, hand over all corruption files, evidence of embezzling antibiotics, and the exploitation of staff by this manager to the federal police. I want him rotting in Kirikiri maximum security prison, a place with zero privileges and zero leniency. Obi let out a throat-tearing shriek of horror. Two elite guards in black immediately stepped up, dragging him away like dragging a bag of trash. Uhok, he thrashed around frantically, his crying and begging drowned out by the thundering roaring in the Lagos sky. Zikora staggered up from the mud. The expensive trench coat from the Burberry fashion house was now stained with mud, her stylishly gelled hair matted against her cheekbones. She tried to salvage the last bit of dignity of an elite daughter, even though her legs were trembling violently. The arrogance ingrained in her blood refused to let her accept this humiliating defeat. Gritting her teeth, pointing her finger straight at Amara. Kosi, are you planning to destroy my family's empire and honor just for this lowly trash sweeper? Have you forgotten that the financial alliance between the Adewale Group and my family is what anchors this West African market? Do you think a hideous scar on your face will make me get on my knees and apologize? Kosi slowly stepped forward. The pressure radiating from his muscular physique made Zikora's guards step back in unison, abandoning their master. Looking straight into Zikora's eyes, roaring. The West African market is dictated single-handedly by me, not by the parasites of your family. From the second you threw back the diamond ring in the hospital room and called me a monster, that alliance was crushed. Ez, pulling a waterproof case tablet from his vest pocket, swiping the screen. Sir, the capital withdrawal order was executed 15 minutes ago. All 6 mining projects and the logistics supply chain of Lady Zikora's family have had their credit cut off. Their stocks on the exchange are in free fall. Partner banks have just issued early debt recall notices. Zikora was dead silent. The entire world of luxury and power that she proudly clung to had just collapsed with a single swipe of a screen. Her sharp, slanted eyes now widened in madness. She lunged forward, intending to grab Kosi's arm, her face pale, sobbing. No, Kosi, you can't be this cruel. My father will have a stroke. My family will go bankrupt. I beg you. At that time, I was just shocked by your wounds. I didn't mean to do it. Forcefully shoving Zikora's hands away, his voice firm. Your cruelty doesn't lie in you abandoning me when I was crippled, Zikora. It lies in you heartlessly crushing the life-saving medicine box of a human being, trampling on the meal of the weak, and stepping on a girl who has a nobler character than your entire family combined. Now get out of my sight. Take your cheap arrogance to the bottom of society and gnaw on it. Kosi turned his back. The guard squad immediately formed a horizontal line, forcing Zikora backward, leaving her screaming and crying in the muddy rain like a deranged lunatic. All her fake authority had been completely stripped away. The moment Kosi turned toward Amara, the brutal, murderous intent on the billionaire's face instantly vanished, giving way to a tenderness that the entire Lagos elite had never witnessed. He walked up to the skinny janitor girl. Amara was soaking wet, freezing cold, her rough hands still clutching each other where she once wore her late mother's silver necklace keepsake. She looked at him in shock. The silent man who submissively drank every spoonful of her bean soup now radiated a blinding light of power. Bowing her head, her voice trembling but maintaining her modesty and self-respect. Master, I didn't know you were. Signaling for Ease to take off his dry suit jacket, personally and carefully draping it over Amara's shivering shoulders. Don't call me master. When I lay at the bottom of the abyss gasping in the dark, you called me a human being. You sold your late mother's priceless keepsake to buy me breath. Looking up, her brown eyes crystal clear. That is something anyone with a conscience would do. The value of a life doesn't change whether you are a beggar or a billionaire. Shaking his head, the corner of his lips lifting into a warm smile, bringing his large hand to grasp her freezing hands. This society doesn't have that much conscience, Amara. You wagered your entire life, starved yourself, and took beatings for a guy with a monster's face. Now, it is time for me to hand back to you the throne you rightfully belong on. Come with me. Tonight, this storm will never be able to touch you ever again. Kosi gently pulled her toward the waiting Maybach S680 with its engine running, leaving behind a dilapidated hospital and the rotting personalities being swallowed by the darkness. The fierce tropical storm that ravaged Lagos last night had retreated, leaving behind a crystal-clear dawn sky and a golden, luscious light draped over the ultra-rich neighborhood of Banana Island. The sleek, black Maybach S680 glided through the gigantic gold-plated cast-iron gates, entering the headquarters of the Adewale family. Entirely unlike the stinking, musty smell of the mainland slum, the air here carried the salty, pure taste of the Atlantic Ocean breeze mixed with the fragrance of thousands of pristine white hydrangeas planted along the path. The car stopped in front of the marble steps of the mansion. Butler Eze stepped out first, personally opening the car door and bowing at the most perfect angle, his tone reverent, echoing with pride. "Welcome Master Kosi back to the throne. Welcome Lady Amara to her home." Amara hesitantly stepped out. She had been taken to a high-end serviced apartment owned by the group to bathe and change clothes right in the middle of the night. Now, the skinny janitor was draped in a smooth blue silk dress that flowed lightly to her ankles, her hair wrapped up neatly to reveal an elegant neck. She wore no luxurious jewelry, but her very simplicity, her resolute brown eyes, and her noble grace shone brilliantly amidst this magnificent space. From the other side of the car, Kosi stepped up. The billionaire had shed his ragged beggar's clothes. He wore a flawlessly tailored navy blue three-piece suit, accentuating his towering mountainous physique. The right half of his face was no longer hidden by bandages. The blistered burn scars stretching from his cheekbone down to his neck were still there, red and rugged. But now, standing at the pinnacle of power, they were no longer the mark of a monster. They were the blazing metal of an emperor who had walked through death, a testament to the cruelty of the human heart he had tasted and crushed. Kosi approached, gently offering his left arm. Amara softly placed her hand on that solid arm. Together they walked up the marble steps, walking past dozens of servants and bodyguards who were bowing their heads low, lined up all the way from the door to the grand hall. Inside the central living room, where the soaring ceiling held gigantic crystal chandeliers, Kosi gestured for Amara to sit on a soft leather-upholstered sofa. He did not sit opposite her but walked over to a solid mahogany table, picking up a stack of documents bound in a gold-rimmed leather cover. Walking over, placing the leather cover on Amara's lap, his eyes deep. "Open it. This is why I brought you here today." Amara slowly flipped open the cover. The first page bore the bright red seal of the federal government and the supreme authorization signature of the Adewale Group. The bold text struck her eyes directly. Decision to establish and transfer ownership of the Amara Okoro Charitable Medical Complex. Below that were 3D architectural drawings of a massive, state-of-the-art hospital complex built right on the grounds of the dilapidated public hospital on the mainland. The entire surrounding slum would be cleared with compensation 3 times the market value to be rebuilt into free housing for poor patients, and in the section for the head, holding 100% of the shares of this non-profit organization, there was only a single name, Amara Okoro. Her skinny hands trembled violently. She looked up at Kosi, her wide brown eyes overflowing with utter shock, her breathing ragged, her voice trembling but still maintaining propriety. "Master Kosi, this thing, it's too huge. I cannot accept it. I am just a cleaner, with no medical degree, no knowledge of management. Are you handing me an entire healthcare system worth billions of naira just because I cooked you a few meals?" Kosi lowered his right knee onto the wool rug, kneeling on one knee right in front of her. A billionaire, the man who had just stripped the political life and assets of Zikora's family in the blink of an eye, was now voluntarily kneeling at the feet of a poor girl. He took Amara's trembling hands and pressed them to his cheek, right where the rugged burn scars were, looking straight into the depths of her eyes, his voice deep, warm, and resolute. "Never call yourself a cleaner again. Amidst a Lagos high society overflowing with people holding prestigious degrees but rotten hearts, you are the only one with the character of a saint. They saw this scar and called me a monster. You saw this scar and called me a human who needed to live. You sold the last keepsake of your late mother to buy me breath. You used this very frail back to shield me from the lashes. Amara bit her lip tightly, hot tears beginning to roll down her cheeks, reaching up to wipe away her tears. I am not buying you off with this hospital. I am returning a weapon to an angel. You have the heart to save people. I have the money and power to make that heart a reality. You don't need a medical degree. Hundreds of the best doctors on this continent will work under your command. You only need to use your absolute kindness to run it, to ensure that not a single poor person is ever kicked out the door into a stormy night by a manager like Obi again. Amara buried her face, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Kosi stood up, pulling her into a solid embrace. He wrapped his arms entirely around the small girl into his broad chest, taking a deep breath of the rustic scent from her hair, his voice echoing through the grand hall, loud enough for Eze and all the servants to hear. They took away your month's salary. I hand you the throne of the corporation. They trampled on your meal. I will let you master the destiny of millions. Starting from today, you will never have to cry because of anyone's cruelty ever again. Outside the massive glass windows, the brilliant sunshine of Lagos reflected sparklingly on the surface of the sea. Somewhere in the city, Zikora was facing the total collapse of her family. Manager Obi was tasting the flavor of prison, reaping what they had sown. As for Banana Island, a new dynasty had just been established. Kosi Adewale, the emperor with a scarred face, had found the most brilliant diamond in his life, and Amara, the girl carrying immense compassion within her, had proven to the whole world that the ultimate form of kindness is a power capable of changing the entire world order, and karma never forgets those who live with a heart of gold.